Hello, hello. Welcome to the 7th episode of the Bass Solo podcast. Or Vodcast. Or something like that. Yeah, so the first proper episode of the podcast in a little while. Actually gonna be talking about last week's happenings, my practicing, all that stuff, like in the episodes before. The last episode, last week's, was more like a just update on the whole series. So, actually getting into a proper episode. First things first, if you're listening to this on Spotify, you can also find this podcast with a video on YouTube on the channel with my name, Severi Lehtimäki. Or if you're here on YouTube and you want to listen to this or other episodes and not watch the show, you can find it on Spotify by its name, Bass Solo Podcast. And yeah. So, what is it? It's Tuesday, I think, and last week was pretty much the first week of summer for me. The school year has ended. I still got a lot of work for the summer, but I made my new summer schedule of practicing and working and started it last week, did the first full week of it, and here to talk about it. Let's first go through that. The song I played in the beginning as a little bit of an intro was a bass solo version of the, again, not a full, not 100% ready version, but anyways, a version of In a Sentimental Mood. Almost forgot it there. That I did a little while back because one of my students was playing that song. So for quite a while it was stuck in my head, and it's a nice slow ballad that you can play really freely. So it really works on doing a bass version of it. Also some kind of interesting harmonies going on with the line cliches at the beginning and all of that, trying to bring those out with the bass. As you might have noticed, it has a line cliche, so the first two bars of the song are a D minor, then a D minor major, then a D minor, but with the seventh, and then D minor with the sixth, and then going into a G minor. What I did with the bass, it actually did this. First, I arranged it to have like two Ds playing at the same time with the low open D and then the kind of like the chord and then the melody note on top. And then because I think when you have a line cliche, you really have to bring it out. It's like the main point of using that kind of chord progression. So it needed to have to do these, but this is a little bit maybe boring sounding with only two notes, so at the lower bass note D. But then I started thinking that that's kind of repetitive, maybe boring. Is there some other note I could play while still doing the line cliche? So maybe with open notes or maybe harmonics or something like that. And I started thinking that, hey, that low E sounds pretty cool having like the ninth in this chord. Yeah, so realized that only a couple of days ago, I think, even though first drafts of this version were like a couple of months from now. But yeah, I think that sounds pretty interesting. Having like an actual bass note with a pretty high chord. Playing it down here doesn't is okay, but I really like this going an octave above and then having these bass notes. It really brings that whole band kind of a mood in there, having the top and having the bottom really separated. So I thought that was pretty neat. I gotta still have to work on the B part of that theme. It's really annoying. The start of the B is pretty fine. But I don't know, the second line isn't really working. The melody has these quarter note triplets going on, and I don't like it. Really need to reharmonize and think that part through. But otherwise, I think it's pretty nice. Now I need to work on the soloing over not having the changes played if I would like to do a full solo version of this song, like to play the theme like that, and then to be able to play the changes, play a solo without any backing, and it's difficult. I probably talked about this in another episode early this year, I think, maybe, or kind of about this subject. I haven't really worked on it actively now, but maybe it's a part of my summer thing going on. But yeah, that was today's little instrument thing going on. And so, as if you have seen any other episodes, you might know I'm pretty strict about my training schedules nowadays. I talk about it. This show is pretty much made so there's like proof, there's a memory of what kind of work a student musician may have to do in their career. So I'd really like to talk about how I practice bass playing, how I practice music, and what are my methods that seem to work for me. I am pretty happy with them. So I'm gonna go through now. I'm gonna go through a part of my schedule, and we'll return to the schedule in other shows too. I don't wanna just lay it out there whole, because there's a lot of parts to it that need explaining. So one part at a time, so it gets a little bit mellowed out throughout the weeks. But yeah, made my first schedule. I have now fitted the main practicing into 5 days of the week, and 2 days I have off, which might mean, just having some free time, 3 days to do something wholly other than sitting here in my office. But it's very likely that those days are filled with music, but more casually, maybe just like actually having days where you can just jam. Like I do really enjoy just improvising and playing things absolutely on my own, not having any kind of regulations to it. But doing that in your training days is pretty hard, because I try to do full days already, and then so I have to have some kind of time slots, and then to have time slots for free improvisation and feeling like jamming and stuff like that, it's still kind of annoying to fit into a slot. So I have these open days of doing anything other than music, but maybe if I do music, it's gonna be something that I really, really feel like at the moment, without any restrictions or something, anything like that. Not that I'm restricting or forcing myself to do anything in my training schedule at the moment, but maybe you'll understand what I mean. Just being free with the music. So 5 days, they're about 6-hour days right now. 6 slots. I'm like 6 hours of slots divided into 4 subjects, which 2 of those I do for 2 hours, and then the rest 4 are, and then there are 2 1-hour slots in there too, and just fit it into with like lunch and kind of a rough draft. So I start my day pretty early, and I don't know if it's pretty legible there. Try to start my day at like 9, so I'm pretty much gonna be free at 4 p.m. with my training schedule. Then if I have schoolwork or any other thing, I still have I have a full free time. I'm not really going for that 10 hour. 6 hours is plenty. And obviously, because these are long-term goals, I am able to stretch them if I need to. If I'm out of town, maybe I don't have the base at all, because none of these things really in the schedule are things that I need to have ready, like in even like, I don't know, 2 months. Maybe the start of school would feel if I had made some big strides in some of the bigger projects. Then I want to do those, but again, I have 3 months until the new school year to get a lot of stuff done. So I think I can handle it with a little bit of stretching, even though I do like to be pretty strict about my schedule. But yeah, so what is it? 4 slots every day. What are those? Well, first, and I'm gonna go through these in different episodes. So today is gonna be the first slot. It's a 1-hour slot that I go through every single day, and it's the really, really basic stuff. It's all the scales, and it's all the scales that I am working on right now, which is divided into a cycle of 3. So every 3 days it goes back to the beginning. So just about twice a week I do any of the scales. For the first day, I have all the major modes. Obviously they are pretty familiar at this point already, but I don't see any harm in playing those again and again, obviously, because they are the most used modes that we use in Western music. So it's important to go through those, I think, and it's still just every 3rd day anyways. But yeah, the major modes, and then I have both the diminished scales in there too. And how do I practice these? At this point, I'm trying to. It's mostly going through the scale in at least like in 3 octaves at least, because I'm on the 6th string. Go through, play the chords that are involved with the scale. I play also the scales with the chord itself, and then the additional notes of the scale on top of that chord and stuff like that. I go through all the things. Right now I have been trying this new method of randomizing the scales with actually with dice. It's so if I have the major modes and 2 diminished scales, that means that there's 9 scales. So I throw I throw 3 dice for the scale from the selection, and then I throw 2 dice for the what's the word? I throw 2 dice for the starting note of the scale, and I then play all the things from there. So like I start the calculations from C, so C is 1, and then C sharp is 2, and D is 3, and I go and I throw the dice and it lands on something. Although it did take me at least a day to understand that if I'm only throwing different amounts of 6-sided die, I will never get a C major, because when I throw the 3 dice when I throw 3 dice for the different scales, I count them that 1 and 2 from the dice would be the major, and then 3 and 4 would be Dorian, and 5 and 6 would be. So it's 2 numbers. 2 different numbers correlate to a scale, but obviously with 3 dice you can't throw anything under 3. I guess that doesn't really matter. I could circle them around maybe, I don't know. Now I really don't. We'll see. And then obviously I wouldn't get a C as my starting note, because when throwing 2 die, I can't get 1. I can get minimum of 2. Anyways, maybe I'll get that Dungeons and Dragons dice set, so I can have a D20 and all that, so I can throw these amounts. Anyway, it's kind of stupid, but it does get things randomized, which is kind of fine. So because I have noticed that it's so easy to, when I do this, to always go like A anything, or E anything, or F or B flat anything. So I do get a little bit of different variations, even though it's not a perfect system. But it's kind of fun. Get to throw dice, it's hands-on, and it feels randomized, so it feels like a test type of a situation in a way. But yeah, I go through, so it's an hour slot. I play between 45 and 60 minutes, usually closer to 45, so I have a little bit of a break before the next slot starts, usually at when the clock strikes something o'clock. So I start the next slot. Then I have, so the first days are majors, and then the second day, which otherwise is all the same type of things, but I have the melodic minor modes, all the melodic minor modes with chromatic and the whole tone scale. Do they really correlate? I don't know, maybe, kind of. I just needed to divide them this way. But yeah, again, 9 scales, throw dice, stuff like that. Melodic minor, pretty awesome, pretty fun, really useful, obviously. And then the third day is harmonic minor first, third, and fifth modes, and then harmonic major first, fifth, and sixth modes, and then the augmented scale, which adds up to 7, which is a little bit more stupid to throw with the dice, but because they are the most I don't really know any of those scales that well, especially because they have so many of the sharp 5 scales and the augmented and stuff like that. So I usually go through all of the modes every time that slots is on today's schedule, because again, it's pretty good to just keep playing those over and over again. But yeah, that's the first slot of my everyday. I also especially on the major mode days, and probably on other days too, I often won't start with the basic, just go through the scales and just play the chords and arpeggios and all stuff. I try to have this slot also as a warm-up and rhythmic kind of a exercise too. So I might play some kind of a rhythm pyramid thing going with the scale that is supposed to be, that has randomly been chosen for me, and I use those to warm up, do some kind of rhythmic exercises, and to play these scales, which all are pretty familiar to me already. I can play all of them if asked, but obviously you just gotta play more and more and more of them to get to really know them on all the variations and stuff like that. So I might do it really theoretically in that like test type of a situation, or I might just use these scales as a way to warm up, do some finger exercises, do some rhythmic exercises, do a combination of all of this in the morning. That's why it's the first slot, because it's I think just a very good way of warming up for the next slot and the rest of the day, because the next slot is every day pretty much it's gonna be improvisation, so I want to be warm and able to play my licks and things that are in my head. But I'm not gonna go through the second slot right now. Probably next week we'll go through that. I just wanted to go through the first slot right now. I don't know if there's anything else to really say about it. Probably not. But yeah, that's the thing that starts my everyday. Usually, I hope, this summer at least. Yeah, I guess that's gonna be today's episode. I hope you enjoyed it. And I'll be reporting this week's activities and music stuff I did on next week episode, as well as probably the next slot on my training schedule. So I hope you'll join me next week, Tuesday-ish, again, and see you next time.